Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you so much for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember that we're now live on Traverse TV, Sundays at 1 p.m., YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. And now all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on demand and on Kathy Ireland's streaming platform, Your Home TV, and that's available 24/7. On this New Year's Eve special, we have our Travel Treasures segment brought to you by Navé, and we are in great company with the amazing Candice Lewis-Carter, an American fitness model and one of the greatest figure competitors in history. Under her long list of achievements, Candice boasts over 13 pro victories and is the four-time Arnold Classic Champion. Today, we're chatting motherhood, staycations, finding that parent balance, and what to do about kids, holidays, and sweets. In our Healthy Minutes segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames and OG Pay, we're featuring the amazing David Meltzer, a legendary sports executive, entrepreneur, and investor. He co-founded Sports One Marketing and formerly served as CEO of the renowned Leigh Steinberg Sports and Entertainment Agency, which was the inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire. His life's mission is to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. Today, we're chatting happiness, all about the power of words and how if you speak it, it will actually manifest. In our Business and Buzz segment brought to you by Revere Securities, we are featuring our regular contributor, Kyle Wool, non-executive chairman at Revere, chatting all about the money moves you should be making to set yourself up for financial success. In our Hello Open Metaverse segment brought to you by Animoca Brands, we're featuring Alan Lau, Chief Business Officer at Animoca and Chairman of Parasite, the longest-standing nonprofit art space in Hong Kong. Today, Alan is joined by visual artist Seneca, lead designer of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, BAYC. Rolling Stone magazine stated her creativity helped fuel a tech revolution which rocked the NFT world, and her images have since been sold at Sotheby's and Christie's, with these secondary sales amassing over $1 billion. She's going to be coming on with Alan in just a few. And we are chatting all about art in the metaverse, where we are headed, and how the unique opportunities involving Web3 are facilitating royalty payouts for artists in ways we just haven't seen in the traditional art world before. Stay tuned for the amazing Candice Lewis-Carter, American fitness model and one of the greatest figure competitors in history, in our Travel Treasure segment brought to you by Navé. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, on this New Year's Eve. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes, we have our Travel Treasures segment brought to you by Navé. And today, on New Year's Eve, we are in great company with the amazing Candice Lewis-Carter, an American fitness model and one of the greatest figure competitors in history. Under her long list of achievements, Candice boasts over 13 pro victories and is the four-time Arnold Classic Champion. Today, we're chatting motherhood, staycations, finding that parent balance, and what to do about kids, holidays, and sweets. A new survey back in May of this year suggested a new trend, indicating a rise in desire for closer-to-home adventures and staycations. The Vacationer surveyed over 1,000 Americans over the age of 18 about their thoughts on staycations and whether they'd consider taking one in 2023. Of the respondents, over 67% of those surveyed said they already have or are planning a staycation. Now, if you apply that percentage to the entire population of the US, about 173 million people are planning on taking a staycation in 2023. That's outstanding. Now, according to the survey, Americans living in the middle Atlantic region of the nation, in states such as New York and Pennsylvania, are most likely to take staycations. Americans living in the mountain region, in states such as Montana and Colorado, are least likely to do so. Now, staycation is a word to describe a closer to home vacation or even a period of vacation time spent in one's own home. Now, there are a few reasons why this trend has been rising in interest lately. More money saved on things like gas prices and flights can mean longer trips, better accommodations, or more money funneled towards experiences, tours, and food, which, guys, can all enhance the quality of your trip, no matter if the destination's only 50 miles from your home. And here to chat motherhood, staycations, finding the balance, and managing your kids' sugar intake during the holidays is the amazing Candice Lewis-Carter. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this episode, and thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, well, this is the language you speak, so let's dive right into this. One is stuck at home over the holidays and well into January, whether by choice, by finances, or by family. How do we use our home to sneak in meaningful workouts? I'm always thinking staircases offering you a dozen workout possibilities and outdoor spaces being used for some fresh air and vitamin D. And even one's pool can be used for workouts other than swimming. What is your advice here, Candice?
My advice is look around your house to see what you have. Even if you don't have gym equipment or something is so expensive to go to the store to get some dumbbells, like simple using gallon jugs of water, filling those up. Each gallon can weigh about roughly about 8 pounds. So you can use that for like abs. You can use it for like body weight squats. Even look around the house, like you said, stairs. You can run up those. You can even do some planks. You can do some push-ups up the stairs. Like the house is literally a playground full of workouts using your couch, your table. Everything can be a piece of equipment.
And what about strapping that baby in the baby Bjorn and doing house chores? I used to do that when my Alexa was still in the Bjorn. She's now going to be 7 in just a few days. But I remember, Candice, I would carry her and I would vacuum and I would do everything with her on me. And I think that added a lot of extra workout.
Yeah, it does. Like my brew, he's like almost 30 pounds of weight. And we got in the habit of like always holding him a lot. He's our first son. And so now he wants to be held. So even if I don't want to hold him, I'm like walking around cooking. So I'm like, actually, this is a workout. So it's okay.
You're right. All right, now let's move on to something else here. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends children and parents limit added sugar to less than 10% of their daily calories. However, Candice, we know this better than anybody else, that the average American diet is so high in sugar that kids can easily exceed that limit many times over without even realizing it, especially during the holidays. You're a mom to a toddler who recently tried sugar for the very first time. What is your advice on managing sugar intake?
So my advice is, again, everything you buy in a package is going to have some type of process, ingredients in there, and sugar. And even on the label, it'll say no sugar added. So most people are like, okay, I can get this for my toddler. There's no sugar added. But in fact, there is sugar in there. So get in the habit of at least learning a few different type of artificial sugars. There's over 250 words for sugar that they can use on the back. So learn the like dextrose, sucralose, some of those. Learn the key ones, and you'll find out that you're looking on the front of the package and it says no sugar, but there's some sugar in there. So my advice is get a habit of learning a few of those different terms and ingredients, but also staying away from things that are in packages. So try something more natural, like adding honey maybe to certain things like oatmeal versus buying the packaged oatmeal that's already flavored with like cinnamon or something like that. Also, just stick to fruit. Fruit has natural sugars, and your child's going to digest that easier, and he's going to be a lot healthier for that.
Yeah, that there's some great points. And when you look at the statistics, Candice, they're staggering. On average, Americans get about 13% of their total calories from added sugars. Meanwhile, children and young adults between ages 2 to 19 years consume a whopping 17 teaspoons of added sugar each day on average. And taking in excess sugar, obviously we know this can fuel cravings for even more sweet foods or drinks. So I say exactly what you just said. Learn to spot sneaky sugar, right? Many foods marketed as healthy foods and health foods can actually have a lot of those added sugars, like you just said. I'm so glad you pointed that out. So always check the labels on sports drinks, smoothies, protein, granola bars, and yogurt. Some can have as much as 4 to 5 teaspoons of added sugar per serving. So great point. Now, though many may not, be able to travel to the beach or abroad, there are many ways to make a staycation feel like a vacation, Candice. I say you can even travel the world from home. You can embark on multicultural activities or a culinary adventure, or even explore your city like a tourist. What recommendations do you have that's going to keep us fit locally during our staycations wherever we may be?
So we're doing a lot of staycations, and that's so interesting of this show because with our little one, we can't just hop on a flight. We have to plan. So having those staycations helps us keep everything fresh. So we like to check out different parks. So there's sometimes apps that you can download for your city that will have 20 to 30 different parks in maybe a small neighborhood that you had no idea about. So going to different parks, and you'll be surprised how many things you're able to do in parks. Sometimes they have a fitness park where there's equipment, or there's trails, there's pull-up bars, and it's great for the entire family to be a tourist and kind of tour different parks in your neighborhood, or even get outside walking little trails that you can find right in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. What you just nailed it. Amusement park. That's a great way to entertain your youngsters. Play outside games. And one of my all-time favorites, I did this with Alexa, camp at home. I mean, why not spend a night camping in your backyard? It's a great way for children to get the camping experience, but within the comfort of home. It worked out perfectly for me. You just got to plan the weather and make sure that, you're not going to get rained on, but that's also a cool idea. Now, going on a scavenger hunt to get a workout, or visiting a national park close to home, Candice, or hiking on local parks. What is your advice for food on the go, eating out, and keeping the kids' sugar intake leveled?
So I would recommend just packing your own food because then you're safe. You know exactly what's in it. Sometimes going to restaurants, if they may not have healthier choices for your child, or like my son, he's a toddler, he's just 1. So he's very picky. So we have to be prepared. Even going to restaurants, he may not want any of the food that they have. So being prepared and getting some apples, some peanut butter for protein, just being prepared. And so that way it saves you time and money, and you guys can maybe make a little picnic wherever you guys are, traveling, or where you guys are having a little staycation outside.
Yeah, great tips. I mean, this stuff comes so naturally to you because you're living it as we speak. You're living the staycations, you're living traveling with the toddler, you're living carrying the toddler, you're living the whole thing, feeling the physical weight, but also the weight of the preparation and making sure that things are organized. I remember traveling with food, and I would freeze food for Alexa, and I would keep them in Ziploc bags, and I would keep them in. At one point, I even got so crazy, I only wanted to make sure her things were transported in glass containers because I didn't want the plastic, because you read all these stories about the plastic not being really good for the babies with all the PBA stuff in it. So anyhow, thank you for all this advice. Any closing thoughts on traveling with kids and sugar intake and staycations for your listeners?
Yeah, I would say just don't forget your water. Carry that water bottle wherever you go. I like the ones that have the metal so things will stay cold or hot. Because sometimes when you're going places, they may not have, the water that you prefer to have, or, just having water on hand is just a very helpful thing make sure you guys are staying hydrated.
Oh, that was incredible. Thank you. Hydration. Definitely almost forgot that one. Thank you so much for coming on and spending some amazing time with me on this New Year's Eve, Candice. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much.
Definitely check out Candice Carter Lewis. You can check out I Can Fit Beauty. That's her Instagram handle. She is incredible. She is fun. She's full of great content. And at the end of the day, guys, remember, we may like our kids to stay away from sugary treats as much as possible, but we also want them to learn an important skill, how to balance all the available choices when they are able to make food decisions for themselves. So keeping sugary treats under lock and key or banning them altogether may also fuel an unhealthy craving for sugar. So you have to show your children that an occasional dessert or sweet can be part of a balanced diet. Model that behavior yourself. So practice what you preach. Sweets and snacks in appropriate portions are okay in moderation, but being calculated about sugar intake and making the occasional sugary treat as part of your family's culture, you're going to find your children craving sugar less. And snack is going to be something that they enjoy. More mindfully, balanced, and the way to go. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. That was our Travel Treasures by Navé, and that was the incredible Candice Lewis-Carter. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. It's almost that time where we're going to ring in 2023, but we have a few hours ahead of us. In the meantime, up in our Healthy Minutes segment, brought to you by Caldwell Soames and OG Pay, we are featuring the amazing David Meltzer, a legendary sports exec, entrepreneur, and investor. He co-founded Sports One Marketing and formerly served as CEO of the renowned Leigh Steinberg Sports and Entertainment Agency, which was the inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire. Now, there's a fun fact. His life's mission is to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. And as part of that mission, for the past 20 years, David has been providing free weekly training to empower others. Today, we're chatting all about happiness, especially going into 2023, the power of words, and how if you speak it, you can manifest it. For many, happiness is usually referred to as the ultimate goal of life that everyone strives for. But a multinational study called Predictors of Aversion to Happiness, authored by Mohsen Jashanlu, found that people with unhappy childhoods are more likely to exhibit a fear of happiness. Happiness is a highly coveted emotion that many of us build our lives around. But psychology research suggests that people can be afraid of happiness, a concept called aversion to happiness, the belief that experiencing or expressing happiness can cause bad things to happen. As humans, we have different genes, different fingerprints, different personality traits, and different ideas about happiness. Our attitude towards happiness is not just a matter of personal choice. The attitude is determined to some degree by cultural factors, our psychological traits, such as degree of perfectionism, and the quality of our relationships with others throughout life. Here to chat happiness, how to spread it, and the power of words is the amazing David Meltzer. Welcome to the show, my dear friend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And there couldn't be a better thing to talk about as we come into the new year than the joy and happiness that life can provide if we think, say, do, believe, and feel all the things in that trajectory of happiness.
Oh, well said. And Happy New Year. Wishing you happiness and health and all the best for 2023.
Thank you, and the same to you.
All right, so let's get to it. Positive emotions have been linked with better health, longer life, and greater well-being in numerous scientific studies. We know this. And on the other hand, chronic anger, worry, and hostility increase the risk of developing heart disease as people really react to these feelings with raised blood pressure and stiffening of blood vessels, so to speak. But it isn't easy to maintain a healthy, positive emotional state, David, and harnessing the power of happiness, mindfulness, and inner strength can be a really daunting, clueless task for many. Talk to me about the basics to maintain a happy state.
Well, first, we have to look at happiness in a different way. We can't romanticize happiness as the solution to everything. And so we have to have practices of happiness. And the first practice of happiness is to identify what's interfering with our happiness. So, in other words, we have to shift the paradigm to say that I am happy. What am I doing to interfere with it, instead of I need to get more happy? And that paradigm shift also includes something called faith. Faith that there's something bigger than you that loves you more than your mom. And that's not easy. But I think putting into context happiness as a practice, and the practice that I have is enjoying the consistent everyday, persistent without quit pursuit of my happiness. And I joke around, there's a guy named Chris Gardner who wrote the movie Pursuit of Happiness, the book, and had Will Smith star in that movie. And I said, you got it backwards. You have to not pursue happiness. It's actually happiness is the pursuit. So notice I talk about a practice of enjoying the consistent, persistent pursuit, not being happy after you pursue something. It's part of you. So that paradigm shift allows us to have a practice of happiness.
Very interesting, because when you look at it, right, modern happiness has certain tropes associated with it: money, success, comfort. But if you look at social scientists, they're finding that generating happiness in your life really has less to do with any arbitrary number like our bank account or how many Instagram followers we have, and really more to do with how well we connect with the people around us. So what you said is very true. Talk to me about the notion of positivity and speaking empowering thoughts into the universe, David.
Yeah, there's a mathematical equation like I'd like to rely on myself. And first, it's one, attention. We need to focus in on what it is that makes us happy, or what we think is going to make us happy. And then this idea of intention. And one fifth of intention is what we say. It's also what we do and think, believe, and feel. But those words have power. In fact, when I wrote my first book called Connected to Goodness, the very, very famous book review, and I was very glad that this happened, she just crapped on my book. And the reason she hated my book was because I wrote in the book, as I had learned, that you could speak to water. We're 80% water. Think about that. And if we speak to water and if we say loving things to water, it actually would clear the water up. The cellular structure of the water would take the information from the vibration or frequency of our voice, and it would change the cellular structure of the water. And if we would say negative things to the water, the cellular structure of the water would become dirty, and it would be in a state of inflammation, in other words. And inflammation in the body, for example, which is 80% water or more, it causes cortisol, which creates more inflammation, more interference to our health and our happiness. So to this end, this great book reviewer did on my book, excuse my language, because I said this in my book. And meanwhile, it caused a whole rush of people to defend me who understand how thinking, saying, doing, believing, and feeling something changes our cellular structure. When I drink water, I talk to my water. So as I drink water, I tell it, I am happy, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am worthy. And I put it down into, now it becomes a part of my cellular structure. So it's extremely important, mindset, heart set, and handset wise, to say things that are aligned with the trajectory of what you think you want in the future.
So very true. And, the power of words and affirmations, our thoughts also impact what we manifest in our lives. But it could be argued that the real power lies in our words. It's our words that provide a bold affirmation of our innermost thoughts. I mean, at the end of the day, they are a confirmation of the world, of how we see others, ourselves, and our lives. And if you really kind of think about the big picture of it, what you just said resonates very much, but it's this powerful affirmation that our words provide, which enables our thoughts to manifest into a reality. So whether you're talking to the water, or whether you're talking to yourself, or whether you're talking to your child, or whether you're giving a compliment to somebody, right? I always say, at the end of the day, I believe that we all have a superpower that we might not know about the power that we have, but it's the power to make another person glow. In fact, a study found that we underestimate how happy someone feels after they receive a compliment. And as a live radio and TV host, I always remind people that these small acts of kindness have a huge impact, and letting people know that they matter is so very important. Talk to me, David. Why do we choose to misuse our most powerful asset and often misuse our words and self sabotage?
Well, it's interesting because of that paradigm shift that most people think they have to go out and get something. They look the wrong way in effective communication. They're so worried about telling people what they think, they don't realize that effective communication starts with inspiration, intellect, and intuition of knowing that there's something bigger than them that loves them more than their mom. And that if we have faith, and I'm not talking just religious faith, spiritual, theoretical, cognitive faith, but if we have faith, a hope of something better, that we first should look to a bigger and greater source, an omniscient, all powerful, all knowing source. Why? Because everybody gets kicked in the face on average about the same amount of times a day. Everyone, no matter how much money you have, where you grew up, everyone gets kicked in the face approximately the same amount of times every day. That's why I use time, the man-made construct of time, to quantify the progress that I'm making, to determine how much time am I spending in interference, in that state of unhappiness. And so because time is a stable piece of data, that I know that, for example, on average, you get kicked in the face 8 times a day. How long does it take you to get back to center, back to happiness? See, I used to have a need to be offended, separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, resentful, all these interfering thoughts. And I'd spend days, weeks, months, and years with a need to be offended with the people that were closest to me, ruining the relationships, the relativity of my connectedness with others. And instead, I started to use time and daily practices in order to effectuate being happy more of the time by actually quantifying how much time it took me when I got kicked in the mouth or kicked in the face to get back to happiness.
I love how you put that. That's very true, very true. And I'm of the mindset that everyone has unique strengths. I always tell this to my daughter. She's going to be 7 in just a few days, but people might not know what those are. And studies have found that using your strengths is associated with living a happier life. So I always seek to find the strength in others, and the ability to show people what they're best at, I believe, is going to make them feel so much more confident. So by calling it out when you see it in action, reaffirms that you're actually paying attention, and the universe actually requires us to listen, observe, and then react. So identifying other people's strength inadvertently propels us ourselves. So yeah, I definitely believe that it's full circle. It's all energy. David, let's speak from the heart. So when we complain about our lot in life and speak anxiously or use hateful words, we usually do so from a place of fear. How can we practice better self-awareness?
Well, I have a 4-step process to practice this and create better awareness or a higher vibration to this matter. And one is you have to practice identifying fear, right? Everyone has it. You're not going to get rid of it. So we have to identify fear. And it comes in many forms, as I kind of rambled off the need to be separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, resentful, just to name a few. And so when we practice identifying fear, now we can utilize that fear. And there's 2 utilizations of fear. And one is to motivate us, right? To flee, to fight, to feed, to fornicate. It's a motivator fear. And that's the essence of what fear was created for, to protect our embodiment. But we also can utilize fear to get out of our own way, to access and effectively communicate with that source I was talking about, the truth, the law of love, potential, whatever you define it as. And so first, if we can identify, geez, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm offended, I'm upset, and then practice, instead of fighting it, out logicking it, analyzing it, going over it, under it, through it, lying to it, manipulating it, cheating it, and denying it, which most people do. In other words, instead of accelerating in the fear to a different direction, simply stop. Breathe through our nose, out through our mouth, remember and recollect what it is I want today and the trajectory of what I think I want in the future. Remind, remember, and recollect to what? To the source, so that you're protected and promoted when you identify fear, not punished. And this essence of understanding, when we identify fear, we know our mind, our body, and our soul are on fire. And everybody knows if you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll.
I love it. I love it. You are wise words, my friend. And it comes back. We have about a minute left, but I just want to end by saying something about joy, because when you're looking at fear and when you're looking at joy, those are two very, very different emotions. And joy, I always say, can be magnified if we're around others. We all know that intuitively, if we're watching like a really, really funny movie by ourselves, great, it's pretty cool. But if we're watching a really funny movie with our best friend, we're looking over and sharing the laughter together, that kind of feels a lot better. So the emotions we experience, good or bad, get more intense when we experience them together. And so this also explains why negativity tends to spread like wildfire, given the right context, such as like a toxic office environment, for example. But so insightful. So much going on in my head right now, and I'm feeling really happy and good because you just reset a lot for me. So I just wanted to thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and spending this really special night with me.
Thank you. Happiness is the most viral of all diseases. So spread happiness. Even witnessing happiness makes us happy, as you said, by sharing it with others, especially in the new year. Please manifest everything you desire. Reach out to me, david@dmeltzer.com. I'd be happy to help you with exercises, guides. They're all free. So just email me.
We are at the end of this inspiring interview, my dear friends, a few hours away from 2023. So take a moment to reflect on the year that passed and what changes you need to make to live out your best life in this new coming year. I know for a fact that you're all very special and that this is going to be one magnificent year. That was our Healthy Minutes segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames and OG Pay. And that was the awesome David Meltzer. Head directly to his website at dmeltzer.com, or you could check him out all over social media, on the gram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at David Meltzer. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our Business and Buzz segment, brought to you by Revere Securities, we are joined by our good friend and returning contributor, Kyle Wool, non-executive chairman at Revere Securities. And tonight on this very special New Year's Eve, we are chatting all about the money moves you should be making to set yourself up for financial success in 2023. Now, the past year has been marked by record high inflation and multiple interest rate hikes. As the Fed attempts to rein in inflation by raising interest rates, there's a strong possibility that the economy teeters towards a recession in the coming months. So if you're concerned about the economy, guess what? You're not alone. In fact, consumer sentiment about the economy has hit historic lows. Though personal finance advice is unlikely to save you from inflation or a market downturn, Kyle is going to come on to share some personal finance tasks and tips to help you save at least some money and to plan for the future. Now, when it comes to getting your finances in order, you'll want to consider how rising interest rates affect how much interest you pay on your debt. Now, when the Fed increases the federal funds rate, it does alter the interest rate on interbank lending, and this in turn affects how much interest you pay on your debt. It's truly all very much connected. Now, here to chat 2023 investments and coming out winning is our top trending financial literacy segment, and my dear friend and expert at hand, Kyle Wool. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thanks for having me, Zen, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So, Kyle, if anyone knows how to build wealth. It is you. You have spent your entire career investing for people and making them very, very wealthy. You're a smart and very successful business person. When it comes to getting your finances in order, I'd say that one would want to consider how rising interest rates affect how much interest we pay on our debt. And when the Fed increases the interest rate, like I said earlier, this in turn is tied to credit cards, APRs. They are tied to the federal funds rate, but more so, even with investments tied to our actual money invested in the capital markets. It all goes hand in glove. What advice do you have going into 2023 to hedge against this insane inflation when investing?
Yeah, I think you make some great points, Zen. And I do think the most important thing that we need to think about is the serviceable debt that each family has. What I mean by serviceable debt, what is the debt that you have to pay on a monthly basis, right? And going back to what you just said, your credit card debt, that's one of them. That will move up as interest rates move up. Also, if you have a HELOC, a home equity loan, that has also moved up substantially to probably 6, 7, even 8%, depending on your credit rating. Other things that you have to look at, if you have a 7-year ARM or a 5-year ARM or a 9-year ARM, depending on where you are in that gestation period, your monthly mortgage payment could be going up substantially from where you locked it in just a few short years ago. So I think those are the things you need to focus on first. And secondly, you have to look at your investment portfolio. And you want to make sure that you're investing into companies that are going to do well in a higher interest rate environment. Now, as rates go up quickly, certain sectors like technology have been affected. But when you look at the traditional commercial banks like Wells Fargo, the Bank of America, these are places where now they haven't been able to make money on mortgages or make money on money markets in a long time. So those kind of investments will probably do quite well in this economy. So these are the kind of macro themes we need to look at. But I would say the first and most important thing is to make sure the debt that you have is serviceable, and all of a sudden that you don't have 7 or 8% on a monthly basis that you need to start paying to keep yourself in the black.
That's some great advice. Great advice. And yeah, the bottom line, I mean, that's where the Federal Reserve System comes in. Its primary function really right now is to maintain a low inflation rate and unemployment rate in the US, which it does by controlling the federal funds rate. By increasing the federal funds rate, the Fed makes it more expensive for banks and therefore consumers and businesses to borrow money. So to your point, for consumers, higher interest rates mean it's more expensive to buy big ticket items that are typically purchased with credit, such as homes, automobiles, furnitures, and large appliances. So you do have to make sure that your debt is serviceable and that you are thinking long-term strategically. Let's flip back to your wheelhouse. So higher interest rates may help curb soaring prices, but it also increases the cost of borrowing, which can make everyday financial products more expensive, like mortgages, personal loans, and credit cards. And given the current economic outlook and interest rate environment, saving money and paying down high interest debt have become much more appealing. But right now, there are no signs rates will be dropping anytime soon. And the Fed actually says it's going to continue to rate hikes in 2023. So even if the economic outlook suddenly shifts, it's always a good idea to focus on the fundamentals that you put on firm financial footing. What should those fundamentals be, in your opinion?
Well, I think we have to look at where we are within the rate cycle, right? And I would say taking inflation and controlling inflation is always like a two-headed dragon. You have the fiscal policy and you have the monetary policy. On the monetary side, we've raised interest rates quite a bit in the last 12 months. On the fiscal side, I think we need to curb spending. And hopefully with the new Congress, we will start to curb some spending. So knowing that we're probably at the last stages, hopefully, of raising interest rates, you can start to factor going forward. So if you do want to dive into a mortgage, may not be the worst time to dive into a mortgage, because even though they have moved so much, Zen, historically, they're not that high. I remember when I was a young child, and I'm a little bit older than you, I remember in 1980, our parents' mortgages were 20%. You were getting 18% on CDs. Now, your money markets have gone from 0 to you're getting an actual return on your money markets. If you want to buy the 1-year US Treasury, you might get 3.5%. So there's things you can do with your cash right now that you couldn't really do for the last few years. If you left your money in the money market, you're getting a 0% return. If you're looking at 1-year Treasury, so it wasn't even worth putting the money in there. So there are conservative ways to put your conservative places to put your money. And I would say just pay very close attention. I think we're at the end of the rate hike cycle. I wouldn't be surprised if the economy continues to trudge along a year from now or even 18 months from now if you see a rate cut. But I don't really think we're going to have any substantial rate hikes. So knowing that, yourself and also Fortune 500 companies can begin to plan that out over the next 12 to 18 months, which is very important. 6 months ago, we didn't know if it was 1980, like Chairman Volcker, they were going to 18 to 20%. Nobody really knew. But I think we're pretty comfortable right now. That is inflation under control? No. But is it much closer to being under control? Yes.
I love the way you put that. I mean, you said at the onset of answering this question, you may be a bit older than me, but you appeal to that young investor frame of mind, even though you have that old school mentality and cater very much to the baby booming market. But you have this approach that you could speak Gen Z language, you could speak millennial language. And so I think that financial literacy plays a huge part in why your business is so successful. But let's talk about the famous question. So for wealth managers, do you believe you can outperform the market, right? So according to Spiva US scorecard, Kyle, 92% of large cap money managers, 94% of mid cap managers, and 91% of small cap managers failed. I repeat, they failed to exceed their benchmarks in market performance over a 15-year period ending in 2017. So these statistics are slightly dated, but again, we're looking at a 15-year period, right? So someone like yourself who knows the facts will say, that it's highly unlikely to outperform the market. And that's why you use a strategic approach. Talk to me about your approach.
Well, you really have to be tactical if you want to outperform the market, right? So when you're looking at each of those indices, you're having a small cap manager, he's managing against the Russell 2000. That's the small cap index. If you're looking at a large cap manager, he's mostly going to be managing against the S&P 500. And if you're looking at a mid-cap manager, probably the Russell 2500, which is all well and good, and you want to compete against your indice. But I think if you look at more of a holistic approach and you get more tactical, not only saying, I want to outperform the stock market, but what's your risk-adjusted return? How much are you leaving in cash when you say that? How much are you leaving in fixed income, which is a less volatile investment and a more, say, safe investment that's throwing off yield? Is it a 70-30? Is it a 50-50? Depending on your demographic and your risk tolerance and your age bracket. But also, I think the blending between the different sectors of the market really come in. If you were overweight technology last year, 100% you're going to underperform the S&P 500. If you look at companies like Meta, Mark Zuckerberg's personal net worth is down from 130 billion to 30 billion. Stock was down over 60%. These things happen. But I think the way you outperform the market is you see what's performed best over the last 12 months, and you wonder, is that going to continue that trend? Or is there going to be something that's maybe like the old saying, the dog's the Dow, that has been the worst over the last 12 months? And maybe that'll be the best over the next 12 months. So I think that's really when you get into an asset allocation, what it was, how I need to rebalance. And this time of year, I think it's very timely to look at that, especially for tax harvesting, tax loss harvesting, and to see what you think will be the best over the next 12 months. And I think being thematic and being tactical is how you do that, but I'm more of a holistic way, not just competing against one particular indice, because everyone has different risk tolerance.
When are you going to author your own book? You so deserve to, at this point, put all of this into proper context, because hearing you speak and break it down is separate of it being philosophical. It makes sense, even from an investor's perspective, but that's the frame of mind that you want to look for. That's the type of mind you want to look for when trying to pick the right wealth manager and even when investing with the right person. I remember once, Kyle, I asked you what your philosophy about active versus passive management was. And you might not remember this, but you replied, Strategic management, Zen, not passive or active. Strategic achieves equivalent or even better returns at far or lower cost to my clients. And to minimize my costs, you said you use strategic management. You charge no hidden fees, disclose everything, and minimize taxes. So I've kind of looked at the way that you have gone about your business and building your brand, and I've seen that, you know what, you actually have a proven method towards creating wealth for your clients. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, I think something that you just mentioned, I think is very important this time of year, because this is the time of year that you want to do tax harvesting, the end of every year. And I know we're on New Year's Eve, so maybe it's a little too late for some people, but the point is these are things you should think about, especially in the month of December every year, that you're going to have some stocks, some assets in your portfolio that have not done well. And maybe if you don't think they have a good prospect, instead of hoping they come back, you take those tax losses that can offset some of the gains you've had over the last few years. And this is really the thesis of someone like Warren Buffett. When he made a bet, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, he bet every hedge fund manager that he would outperform them over a 10-year period. And not many of the hedge fund managers took the bet. And the reason is because of how hedge funds transact. They have a lot of short-term capital gains. In most places, short-term capital gains are taxed at 50%. Long-term capital gains, where no capital gains, when someone like Mr. Buffett will buy Apple and hold it for 15 years, or buy Coca-Cola and hold it forever, he's going to have a better return. And he's also not charging 2% management fees and 20% of the profits. So I think it's not about what you make. It's really about what you retain. And between management fees, back-end fees, and tax-adjusted returns, these are things you really need to look at. I think that's why for the average investor, a low-cost ETF is not a bad investment for the core part of your portfolio. And where you really want to add value are in the tactical satellites you do around that.
That's a great point. You know, when you look at ETFs and when you look at all the tactical satellites around that, that's going into some more complicated financial talk, which we're going to pick up soon. But everything that you just said put things into perspective in terms of proper planning, proper frame of mind, understanding your market, understanding who you're dealing with and not dealing with, and also looking at your historical curvatures. Kyle, thank you so much for piping in. Any closing thoughts for what people should be thinking to be on their way to financial freedom in 2023? We've had a crazy year. Inflation, soaring prices, bottlenecks, a crazy administration. What are your final thoughts?
I think the only thing I would say is, first of all, I'd like to wish everybody a happy new year and have a great, prosperous new year. But at the same time, when the markets are difficult like they have been in 2022, and everyone thinks that the end is near and the markets will never go back up, if you look at the historic performance of the markets, they do trend higher over time, especially if you're in a nice diversified portfolio. And I wouldn't be surprised if the first quarter is quite tough this year. But I think by the time you look at the end of the year of 2023, I also would not be surprised whatsoever if the 2023 returns are in excess of 10% to the upside in the S&P 500. So with that, Happy New Year. Let's all keep positive and let's try to be prosperous.
Those are awesome closing thoughts. Thank you so much. That was our Business and Buzz segment brought to you by Revere Securities. That was our awesome returning contributor, Kyle Wohl, non-executive chairman at Revere Securities. Definitely check them out at reveresecurities.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Animoca Brands. As a worldwide industry leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and digital property rights, Animoca Brands plays a key role in the future growth of the open metaverse. During unstable times like these in burgeoning industries similar to blockchain, it's important to realize that blockchain can and will survive and eventually flourish, and industry-leading companies like Animoca Brands will guide the transformation into the future. Animoca Brands will keep building a better and fairer Web3 ecosystem, create impact for better, and bring true digital property rights to all internet users through NFTs and the open metaverse. For more information and to become part of the excitement, go to animocabrands.com. That's animocabrands.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to Hello Open Metaverse, brought to you by Animoca Brands. Today, we're featuring Alan Lau, Chief Business Officer at Animoca Brands. Interestingly, outside of his tech work, Alan contributes actively to arts development, chairman of Parasite, which is the longest standing nonprofit art space in Hong Kong. He also co-chairs the Asia Pacific Acquisition Committee of Tate and the Asia Art Circle of Guggenheim. Today, Alan is joined by visual artist Seneca, otherwise known as All Seeing Seneca, best known for her digital paintings and character design. Rolling Stone magazine stated her creativity helped fuel a technological revolution, lauding her contributions as lead designer of Bored Ape Yacht Club, BAYC, which rocked the NFT world back in April of 2021. Her images have since sold at Sotheby's and Christie's, with secondary sales amassing over $1 billion. Remind you, the ape character became the center heart of a massive cultural community. Since leaving the BAYC project, her work has continued to accrue accolades, soaking up the media spotlight, being declared one of CoinDesk's most influential figures of 2021. Today, on this very special New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, depending on what part of the world you're tuning in from, we're chatting all about art in the metaverse, where we are heading, and how the unique opportunities involving Web 3.0 are facilitating royalty payouts for artists in ways we simply have not seen in the traditional art world. Finding profit in NFTs and chatting all about art in the open metaverse in 2023. Welcoming now to the show are my experts at hand, Alan, Lau, and Seneca. Welcome, my beautiful friends.
Hi, Zen.
Hello.
Very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you both for joining me on this very special New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. Alan, let's start with you. The explosion of NFTs in just the last few years has brought a tidal wave of disruption into the historically static world of fine art. What's more, it has brought an entire generation of new art collectors and indeed artists into the fold. But what hasn't materialized is a bridge that will bring together the traditional art world and the burgeoning industry of digital art. The metaverse could become that very bridge as collectors and galleries explore how to bring some of the world's rarest art pieces into the virtual realm. Talk to me about what art looks like in the metaverse and where we are headed.
Well, I think the metaverse doesn't have physics. So unlike a museum or a white cube gallery, you can be a lot more creative in terms of how you display art. And I think that's where metaverse can really disrupt the art world. So you can imagine a small painting would become a huge digital billboard in the metaverse, or it can become something that you wear, something that you own. It could be AR filter. So, I think the way that art can represent itself could be a lot more creative, and there's a lot more flexibility in the metaverse. And I think that's one of the many things that will look very different to people.
Certainly. I mean, the metaverse is going to open up a new world of accessibility, like you said, for people around the globe to enjoy art, and also bring a surge of digital art investors into the often inaccessible world of fine art. So it's an amazing bridge. Seneca, you are extremely talented and interestingly appeal to both the traditional art world as well as the digital one. You've effectively done what every other artist only dreams of, and you've managed to do this impressively both in the physical and digital world. Now, the idea has been represented in fine art, in literature and film, and even video games for years, but incorporating blockchain technology and NFTs takes this idea into a completely new realm. From your point of view, I mean, it's a win-win for all, but why do you feel that there has not been any significant collaboration between traditional art and the metaverse to date, given all the hype?
Well, first of all, thank you for your lovely introduction. But also, for one, I think collaboration can take many forms. And I think there have been examples of collaborations. It's just that the world has not seen enough of them. Just like any other new art movement, there will be some reluctance to accept new cultural shifts or disruptions. And also, digital art just has not yet had a chance to mature in the eyes of the traditional art world and its audience. So maybe to demand a full, welcoming acceptance is just not something realistic. And maybe established institutions have to tread more carefully because this is something still quite new. And I, as a creator, I believe that the work has to find its home, organically. And a lot of the time is with pop culture, it's creating new conversations and audiences other than the traditional art world, and they are perhaps faster to adapt. That being said, personally, I think there have been real collaborations as of late. For example, the MoMA recently showcased a digital piece by Rafik Anadol, which is a huge deal in terms of shining more of a spotlight on the digital medium. And to give another example, I recently had a solo auction with Phillips Auction House to sell a series of digital paintings, as well as my first traditional painting. And all of that process included the blockchain technology, in the auction process and beyond. So that is a form of Web3 collaboration with the fine arts market. And I would say also, we look to Alan here as well, whose contributions as leadership with the museum M+ in Hong Kong, they're very forward thinking and have placed great consideration towards the new digital art movement. And we need figures like him to continue to champion this craft and ultimately be tastemakers to tell our story. I certainly have a lot to look forward to in this medium, as a visual artist, both digital and traditional. And, with my footprint, having done the Board Biao Club and now beyond, I know I'm only just getting started. And I know a lot of my artistic peers in Web3 feel the same way.
Oh, you are so just getting started, my beautiful friend. You have the world ahead of you. It seems like Alan wants to pipe in here. And Alan, I'm going to get to you in just a bit. But to reflect to what Seneca just said, I mean, the art world began to discover the NFT world around 2 years ago, but very few have started to actively participate. And NFTs are evolving from their initial use case, and people are beginning to see the potential behind smart contract technology. We're still, like you said, Seneca, very early, and what NFTs will be used for is still evolving, but bringing blockchain technology into this allows for everyone to participate in fine art in a completely different way, which was never possible before, with a real vested interest in this point. Alan, what are some of the ways the metaverse could change the future of how art is consumed and even traded?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about how art can be displayed in a metaverse, which I think could be much more flexible and creative. But when it comes to consumption, I mean, I would also say that it offers a lot more ways for users to interact with or engage with the art, right? So of course, when you go to a museum, you can go to a shop, you can buy tote bags, coffee cups and all that. But when in a metaverse, I think there's a lot more derivative that you can actually create. So again, getting back to your point about accessibility, right? So we can have, I don't think they've done it yet, but maybe a Beeple, a Rafik can have a derivative, a version of the NFT which had a larger number of editions that you can own. It can be a digital item that you wear. It can be an AR filter that you actually adopt, and they can make it at a much more affordable price. So I think that's the flexibility that comes with digital art and NFT in particular. And I think a metaverse open up that possibility.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, art will not only be consumed in the traditional sense anymore, it's going to be participated in, and the community will be engaged and involved with artists in a completely new and really different way. And artworks will become ecosystems and complete movements in themselves. And artists will be at the forefront of this, earning a share of each and every sale and resale of their artwork in perpetuity. I mean, this is truly revolutionary. Seneca,
I just want to add that it actually went the other way as well recently, right? So it's not just digital artists trying to do derivatives and wearables. Vivian Tam recently took Board Biao Club and turned it into actual catwalk clothing that was shown in New York and recently in Hong Kong. So the dialogue is happening both ways, and I think that's super interesting.
I love that you brought that up. I was thinking it, and you just said it. It's amazing. That was a great comment to that. Seneca, could the metaverse be the future of the museum?
So in my opinion, the metaverse existed the moment that, people invested their lives online in a tangible way. And I think what the metaverse does so well is that it provides a way to make art and experiences more accessible, like what Alan had mentioned. I think you have to understand what a museum serves to do, right? It's an institution that preserves, curates, and showcases great art, both historically and culturally significant to the world. And at this point, I think in Web3, we're seeing great collectors, new galleries and collectives that are establishing their, collections per their taste. Certain groups have more specialized, collections based, like on digital painting, generative, or AI. And since Web3 and the digital art realm is so new, I think groups of tastemakers still haven't had the time to cultivate that just yet. And, we're not seeing a museum, so to speak, at the same level as like the Guggenheim, purely because it just hasn't had the decades that institution has had to develop everything. But to answer your question, will there be a space in the metaverse that is digitally native and will have the same reverence as like Tate Modern or the Guggenheim? I say, why not? It's entirely possible. It's going to take that, its own form that's special to the online presence, I think.
Yeah, of course. And listen, physical museums will always be necessary institutions. I mean, nothing will replace the feeling of enjoying a masterpiece vividly standing in its presence. The metaverse is a complementary experience, not a competitor. And the metaverse opens these new possibilities for creators as well as visitors, being open for and accessible to all, like you said, from wherever you are in the world. So the two combined definitely provide ultimate access to culture, without a doubt. We have about 3 minutes left, and I want to move this along because this is an important last question for both of you. Alan, you can answer this one first, but blue chip artwork ownership through fractionalization makes it mass affordable for the first time to own art as an investment without the bureaucracy or paperwork that's necessary in traditional acquisition. And using cryptocurrency to purchase these artworks allows crypto natives to buy real world art, investment assets without needing to convert their crypto back into fiat. NFTs serving as proof of ownership for these assets makes the buying process as easy as a few clicks. This is the future. Talk to me about what NFTs and NFT royalties mean for the art world and for each one of you as artists and collectors. Alan, you could go first.
Yeah, I think the royalty aspect in NFT is probably one of the major, most important innovation. Because I think for the longest time, artists has been cut out from secondary sale, and I think that's just unfair. I mean, they created the artwork, and they could be incentivized to maintain the quality of their produce and even on that particular artwork, right? So I think having royalty is just the right way, and I think the industry kind of started that way. Unfortunately, in the last couple of months, we've seen that there's been a race to zero and people trying to compete away and try to take royalty away. I think that's just unfair. I think that would destroy the industry. Napster has destroyed the music industry. Of course, it's rebirth afterwards in a different iteration. I don't think we need to make the same mistake here. So I think there are platforms like OpenSea which is standing up and holding up the principle and protecting artist royalty, and we need more platforms to do that.
I love it. Seneca, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is certainly a very important conversation, one that I'm very passionate about. I mean, the fact that we have a technology that can enable royalties in perpetuity is a complete game changer, right? Like Alan said, in the history of the art space, it's something like that has never really properly been, set in place or has been a standard. Artists have only been able to benefit from primary sales mostly. And now with royalties, they can share an upside and have tangible equity in what would be hopefully the upward trajectory of their career, which, would only continue to support their endeavors. And now we're seeing it become the lifeblood of the creator economy in Web3. And sometimes it is the main reason behind new artists coming into the space because of this promise, because of this encouragement, right? And also implementing royalties as a standard practice means that we're educating the younger education to appreciate the arts and the creative side of business that is normally not appreciated in the bottom line, and I would very much like to see it as a matter of principle moving forward.
Oh, thank you so much for this very, very enlightening and very, very much needed conversation. I think edutainment and education about Web3 technology, NFT art, blockchain technology, and of course, metaverse is extremely important that we continue to have it. Inclusion for all. Also, make sure that we're including as many women in the process as possible. And I'm so glad that we had the honor to spend this very, very New Year's moment with the two of you. Thank you so much for coming on, guys.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you, Alan. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my friends. That was our Hello Open Metaverse segment brought to you by Animoca Brands. That was the awesome Alan Lau, Chief Business Officer of Animoca Brands. Definitely head to animocabrands.com to get involved in all the action. And you definitely have to check out Seneca. Head to her website, allseeingseneca.com, and all over the gram and Twitter, she's All Seeing Seneca. That's her handle. Make sure that at the end of the day, you really understand that the metaverse, we cannot allow it to be governed by Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. This is a place, an island of happiness and freedom where cyber flanners are free to go from one experience to another with a focus on art and humanity. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Animoca Brands. As a worldwide industry leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and digital property rights, Animoca Brands plays a key role in the future growth of the open metaverse. During unstable times like these in burgeoning industries similar to blockchain, it's important to realize that blockchain can and will survive and eventually flourish, and industry-leading companies like Animoca Brands will guide the transformation into the future. Animoca Brands will keep building a better and fairer Web3 ecosystem, create impact for better, and bring true digital property rights to all internet users through NFTs and the open metaverse. For more information and to become part of the excitement, go to animocabrands.com. That's animocabrands.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. You are 2 hours away from a brand new year. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m., or you could head to 710wor.iheart.com/A Moment of Zen. Also remember that we're live tomorrow, New Year's Day, on Traverse TV at 1 p.m. and on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern. All episodes of A Moment of Zen are also available on Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV streaming platform. And to get access to that, you can just head directly to mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Remember, 2023 is just around the corner, around the bend, but make sure to tune in next Saturday night, and we will be here for the newest segment of A Moment of Zen, our brand new episode for the year, right here, January 7th. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. Remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it, so keep sharing.